Hello, good evening. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Timothy F. Rhines, Chairman of the Dighton Democratic Town Committee. This forum of what you are about to experience is, to our knowledge, a first of its kind held in Dighton. The Dighton Democratic Town Committee, through the hard work of our members, has made this event the talk of the South Coast. This forum you're about to take part in is not going to be your typical style event. As you well know, the Democratic primary is a few months away. The Dighton Democratic Town Committee felt that it would be prudent to present to you, the voters of Dighton and surrounding communities, the opportunity to hear the gubernatorial candidates for governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, two of which are with us this evening. Mr. Bob Massey, who is also running, could not be with us this evening due to a scheduling conflict. Mr. Massey has agreed to come to town at a later date, as to which we will give him the same opportunity to speak to the voters of Dighton and the surrounding communities. It is our sincere hope that you find this forum informative and gives you a little help in guiding your decision when you go to the polls and cast your ballot in either the primary or the general election. And if you could not be here with us in person, local cable television, Channel 9, has agreed to take this forum and show it at a later date only in Dighton. At this time, let me introduce to you the members of the Dighton Democratic Town Committee. Vice Chair, Ms. Vicki Piazza. Vicki, would you please stand and be recognized? I'd like to introduce to you Selectman Secretary at this time, Mr. Brett Graffis. Our esteemed treasurer and our refreshment man, Mr. Russ Allen, who's in the back. We have the executive board members, Mr. and Mrs. Campuchico to my right. If I may at this time, I'd like to recognize your state and local elected officials who are present with us this evening. Would you please stand and be recognized when I call your name? Rep. Pat Dad could not be with us this evening, but I have a prepared statement and remarks that I'd like to read from her. Hello and welcome to you all. While I had every intention of joining you this evening, I was asked by the speaker to spearhead a fundraising event on the South Coast with our legislative delegation. Unfortunately, the two events are running simultaneously. The purpose of our efforts is to garner additional funds to help support the Democratic tickets next year and to aid in combating large sums of dark money coming into our state. I wish you all a wonderful evening. As you know, it will be informative. At this time, I would like to recognize State Senator Mark Pacheco. And would you have a few remarks, please, sir? Welcome, Senator.
Thank you. How about starting off with a nice round of applause for Tim and all the Democratic companies. Thank you very much. It's great to see this forum taking place, because as I go around my district and I see what is taking place throughout southeastern Massachusetts and throughout the Commonwealth and throughout America, I haven't seen the type of interest and enthusiasm at the local level, in particular in the Democratic Party, in a number of years. And so I want to congratulate all of those that took a few minutes tonight to come out and listen to some amazing candidates on behalf of the Democratic Party. The two gentlemen that are here this evening, I happen to know both of them personally. I've known them for a long, long time. And the third person that's running for governor, was not able to be here tonight, but I'm sure we'll be glad to be here another evening. I also know personally, and the character and the quality of these individuals that we are putting forth for consideration by the citizens of Massachusetts, well, they're at the top of the list of people that I would trust with my Commonwealth, making the decisions for that will impact my family in our region, in our communities. As you know, I haven't talked about endorsing any of the candidates at this point in time. I am, and it'll be difficult for me to do so because I know them all so well. I am watching them, and I'm interested in seeing them maybe push them a little harder to get out there and work as hard as possible to get out to every city and town all across this great Commonwealth of ours to talk about the essence and the values of the Democratic Party. To talk about our commitment to children and to families and to education and public safety. The party that I know cares about working class families. The party that I've been involved with over the years cares about a quality public education for our children. Not just for a few, but for all children. The party that I know cares about people that are at the twilight of time as well. They care about our seniors. Party that I know does not cut $7 million from long-term care, as we just saw happen in this budget, where we had to go in and override those cuts to long-term care and to senior care here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. These gentlemen that we're so fortunate to have with us this evening have fought the good fights in government and outside of government. And said he's actually fought the good fight on for us as a veteran as well. I've gone door to door with him for national candidates, you know, going through New Hampshire and other parts of other states, all across this country of ours. I was talking on the phone earlier this evening with Jay, because every time Jay Gonzalez is coming into my district, he's very thoughtful, and he outreaches. And that was the type of secretary that he was for Deval Patrick, to outreach, to reach out to leaders. And we were talking and reminiscing about some of the issues that we worked on together here in for Dighton and this region. So I want to wish my good friends the best of luck as we go forward. My door is open, my phone is operational, you know. So we want to keep the communication going, because at the end of the day, and I say this to all of you here in the room and all of those that are watching at home, at the end of the day, what this is all about, it's not about any of us in elected office. It isn't about any of the candidates that are running. It isn't about the present occupant of the corner office. upcoming election is about the citizens of Massachusetts. It's about their future, their hopes, their aspiration. What kind of life their children will have. How secure will their families be? Will the seniors be? That's what this election is all about. And in southeastern Massachusetts, I think in earnest, we started tonight. Right here in Dighton, Massachusetts, in a rural community where we care about all those issues and more, and we care about things like farming, and we care about family, and we care about each other. So, in that spirit about caring about each other, let us go forth with that message and hear that message from these gentlemen this evening. Thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to recognize some of the elected officials that are in the room. If, when your name is announced, would you please stand to be recognized? I have from Berkeley, Massachusetts, Selectman Gil Lantz. I have a candidate for the Taunton School Committee, Mr. Gregory DeMello. I have our town moderator for the town of Dighton, Mr. William McKeon. As you all know, I'm the chairman of the Dighton Democratic Town Committee. I'm also the chairman of the Recreation Commission in town, and also the chairman of the Community Preservation Committee. At this time, I'd like to recognize Selectman Mrs. Nancy Bueller. At this time, I'd like to introduce my secretary and our secretary of the Dighton Democratic Town Committee, Selectman Brett Zagrafis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Much shorter walk for me, Senator. Fellow Democrats, dignitaries, elected officials, candidates, and all those in attendance, welcome to Dighton, a small town with a big heart. My name is Brett Zagrafos, and I stand before you fortunate every day to be one of the youngest serving selectmen in Bristol County and in the 305-year-old history of the town of Dighton. But let me tell you, my journey to the Board of Selectmen was improbable. In a town with a somewhat significant aging population, it was kind of tough getting the older folks in town to take me seriously at first. So as I went door to door through town, meeting the residents and listening to their concerns, I was often asked, what could such a young guy possibly have to offer Dighton? Good question. My answer was always the same though, solutions. I offered bold solutions on how to address the recent explosion in residential growth, solutions on how to improve transparency and communication within our town government, solutions on how to help preserve our open and recreational spaces in town, solutions on how to bring our 305-year-old town into the future while still staying true to our roots and who we are as a town and as a people. I was elected because Daytonians realized I'd be a public servant, not a politician. So fellow Democrats, my message to you this evening is quite simple. Be bold, be proud, be strong, and be unapologetic. Never forget that we are the party of solutions. We're the party of the people. We champion Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We champion stricter banking regulations after the Great Recession. We see the value in caring for the middle class, the elderly, and those in need. We are Democrats. This is the way Democrats win back elected offices in towns and cities across the Commonwealth. This is how we win back seats in the legislature. This is the path to winning back the executive branch on Beacon Hill. Now I'd like to reintroduce you to a man who has been a mentor, a friend, and an inspiration to me. He's a lifelong Democrat who has been organizing and supporting Democrats in this state and across the country for over 3 decades. We call him the governor here in Dighton because, well, everybody knows Joe. So it's an honor and privilege to reintroduce you to the chairman of the Dighton Democratic Town Committee, Joseph Rhymes.
Thank you for those kind words, Selectman Zagravis. At this time, it is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you both candidates who are running for governor for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Honorable Mayor of Newton, Mr. Seti Warren. At this time, I'm going to ask Mayor Warren to give his opening remarks, please. Mr. Mayor.
Hi, good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good. It is great to be with you this evening. What I'd like to do is spend a few minutes with you telling you why I made the decision to run for governor. There are 3 things in my background that drove me into this race that I think about every day when I travel across our state. First, my 9 years in the military. I enlisted a little bit after 9/11 because my father was in the military. He was a Korean War veteran, and my grandfather was a World War II vet, Battle of the Bulge. Second was my 8 years serving the 88,000 people in my hometown, Newton, Massachusetts. And third is my family. I'm a father and husband, and I have 2 children, 9 and 6. About 10 years ago this fall, my commanding officer of the Navy told me I was going to go to Iraq for a year. I got a 1-year deployment from 2007 to 2008. 2 things I took from that deployment that has stuck with me since that time. Number 1, an appreciation of the men and women that do multiple deployments. I only done 1, some of whom come back injured, some of whom don't come back at all. The second was being on that base, living with, working with, doing missions with people that had nothing in common with me, in some cases. That stuck with me. In the fall of 2008, I came home to raise my family, and I made another decision, and that was to run for mayor of my hometown. At the time, Newton faced a $40 million structural deficit, no rainy day or reserve fund, 2 of the worst conditioned school buildings in the state of Massachusetts, and 1 AAA bond rating that was in danger of being downgraded. Knocked on 11,000 doors, won that election by 469 votes. In the 8 years since I've been mayor, we've eliminated the structural deficit of $40 million. We grew a rainy day fund that didn't exist to $20 million. We are building 5 new elementary schools in the next 5 years, 3 of which are done, 1 of which is being constructed right now. And we're building our roads, sidewalks, our fire stations, and reinstating public safety officials that we lost before I became mayor. We did this for 2 reasons, and I point to them. Number 1, every single one of my budgets that I passed with the city council were driven by outcomes for people. And second, we weren't afraid to raise revenue at the state level. I believe the same principles must apply at Beacon Hill. Every one of our budgets on Beacon Hill must be based on outcomes for people, and we cannot be afraid to raise revenue at the state level. Last November, I made another decision, and that was not to run for mayor of my hometown for a 3rd term. I've loved being the mayor, but as I started moving around the Commonwealth, it became very clear to me that people and communities are falling behind. This issue of economic inequality, I believe, is the defining issue of our time. And when I think about it, I think about my own family. Neither one of my parents grew up with wealth. They grew up in New York and Harlem and the Bronx. My dad was from a tough neighborhood. He joined the military to get out of that life. He went to Korea. And he used his GI Bill benefits from Korea to purchase the home where I grew up with my two sisters and where I live today with my wife and 9-year-old and 6-year-old with GI Bill benefits. GI Bill benefits. This is a government-sponsored program, an investment for people of modest means so they can make ends meet and ensure their kids can do better than they did. That is not happening in the Commonwealth today, and it is wrong. It's bad economics, but there's a moral question attached to it. And here's what it is. I'm asking everyone to ask themselves this question. What kind of Commonwealth do we want to be? What kind of Commonwealth do we want to be? Are we okay with people choosing between paying for a copay, going for a doctor's visit, or paying for the mortgage? Are we okay with people paying for prescription drugs for themselves or their family, or putting food on the table? Are we okay with people being crushed by student debt? It's wrong. We can do better. That's why when I announced for governor about many proposals I made, I said we needed to put in place a single-payer healthcare system in our state now, right now, so people can afford healthcare. The second thing that I announced was putting in place free public college, lifelong, with apprenticeships and internships included. We can't even get to this unless we deal honestly with what's going on in Beacon Hill. We need to raise revenue, and that's why I support the Fair Share Tax Amendment. It's on the ballot. At the same time as the governor's race, it's a flat tax we have in place, income tax 5.5%. It's asking folks making $1 million a year or more to pay a little bit more in taxes. So we can reinvest it in education and transportation, like getting South Coast Rail done, for real. Yeah. And infrastructure, all generational investments, just like the GI Bill was for thousands of families like my own. Finally, we have to be one Commonwealth and work past our political differences if we're going to address economic inequality. And that's what I learned on that base in Iraq. We could not afford not to work together because we thought differently, we looked differently, we voted for someone different. We came together to get through that year. We got to do the same thing in the Commonwealth if we're going to address economic inequality and address our generational obligation to leave this state better off than where we found it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you the second candidate we have this evening, Mr. Jay Gonzalez.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you to the Dighton Democratic Town Committee. This is great to have the opportunity to be here with you today. And again, with Mayor Warren, this is the second time we've done something like this. It's too bad we don't have our third candidate, Bob Massey, here with us, but it's great to be here with you. And I appreciate your deciding to spend your time tonight hanging out with us. It matters to show up to stuff like this, right? There are a lot of lessons. Yes, people are clapping to that. It's important. There are a lot of lessons that I've taken away from this last presidential election. One of them, and this is something President Obama talked about in his farewell address, if you remember that many months ago, but it's this notion that our liberties and our democracy and the strength of our communities, these fundamental American privileges, are not self-fulfilling. They need us. They need us to breathe life into them and to protect them and be vigilant about them. And we cannot take them for granted. The good news is, as Senator Pacheco talked about before, as we've been going around the state, I'm sure this is what SETI's observed also, there are people showing up to stuff like this in town committees and house parties who've never been to anything like it before. And they are fired up and energized and wanting to do something. And that is good. And we need to build on that energy and sustain it. A lot of it right now is focused on Washington for good reason, when we have a president trying to take us backwards. And we need to be focused there, and we need to fight there. But we also need to recognize that the best we're going to do in Washington right now is hold the line. The only place we're going to move forward is here in Massachusetts. And moving forward, making progress, that is a fundamental part of who we are too. My entire life, I've been surrounded by people who've proven our potential for progress. The very first time I ever got politically active was on a campaign for a guy named John Glenn. He was running for re-election to the United States Senate in 1992, and I was mostly handing stuff out at county fairs for him, but a couple of times I actually got to drive John Glenn to events. And it still blows my mind that this man who sat in Friendship 7 and orbited the Earth was sitting next to me in my Ford Tempo. This is an American hero who literally reached for the stars and got there. I got to serve as a cabinet secretary for Governor Deval Patrick, and you all know his life story. It proves the American dream exists, and he never lost sight of all those continuing to reach for it. And there are many others in my life who've proven this point about our potential for progress. People like my wife, and my daughters, and friends, and colleagues, but no one more than my parents. My mom is from Cleveland, Ohio, and during college she went away on a foreign exchange program to Spain. 9 months later, she came back married to my 19-year-old Spanish father and pregnant with me. I love to tell that story to parents who have kids going on foreign exchange programs. It really freaks them out. They didn't have a lot. My mom had to drop out of college to take care of me. My dad didn't speak English, and he'd never been to college. But he worked his way from laying bricks in a city sewer system to becoming a successful small businessman and a proud American citizen. My mom went back to college when I was in high school and became a public school teacher and a member of the teachers union. Together they put all 3 sons through college, and remarkably this year they celebrated their 47th wedding anniversary. It is incredible if you think about it. So through that example and the way they parented us, they always encouraged us to set high expectations for ourselves. And they instilled in us a belief that with hard work and a little help, reaching those expectations was actually possible. Now those values aren't unique to me and my family, right? Those are our values, American values. And no one has reached higher, worked harder, and accomplished more together than the incredible people of Massachusetts. Think about it, we started the Revolutionary War. We were the first to establish a public school and a public park, the first to recognize one's right to marry whoever you love, the first to make universal health insurance coverage a reality, and the list goes on and on and on. This is who we are. We have always been a leader, but not now, not under Governor Baker. I've been frustrated by how little our governor's accomplished, but I've been more frustrated by how little he has even tried. He's way too satisfied with the status quo, and he's too often sitting on the sidelines when we need him. And it's not good enough. Not ever, but particularly not now, when we've got a president taking us backwards, attacking immigrants, attacking our health care, attacking our environment, attacking our democracy. We need leadership. We need a governor who's going to stand up and fight for the people of Massachusetts. There are consequences to a lack of leadership, right? There are way too many families in this state still being left behind, and way too little is being done to help them. And people forget this about our governor, but long before Donald Trump, he failed to stand up to hate and discrimination time and time again, ordering state police to detain immigrants, opposing Syrian refugees suffering a humanitarian crisis from resettling right here in Massachusetts, defending southern states, flying Confederate flags at their state capitals, the very symbols of hate and bigotry and intolerance that we saw on display in Charlottesville. Stayed silent on transgender rights legislation, only signing it when forced to do so and doing it behind closed doors. In my view, it's not okay. It's not who we are, and it is not leadership. Now, our governor's case for being governor wasn't about leadership. Remember, it was that he was going to be a good manager. Well, he has failed at that as well. And I know about good management. When I worked as Governor Patrick's Secretary of Administration and Finance during much tougher times, the Great Recession, we successfully managed the state budget, and at the same time, we achieved the highest bond ratings in state history when I was there. Governor Baker is struggling to manage the budget during a period of economic growth. He's continuing to cut funding for programs that desperately need it, and for the first time in 30 years, one of the rating agencies just downgraded the state's bond rating. And this is supposed to be his core competency and is literally his entire case for being governor. As CEO of a health insurance company that covered low-income people in the Medicaid program, I turned our company around, grew it by multiple times, added hundreds of jobs. We were considered a leader in addressing the opioid epidemic. I know about good management. And we can do a better job managing state government. I am certain of that. But here's the thing. Unlike Governor Baker, and I'm going to bring you into this, we believe managing government well is necessary, but not sufficient. Government is our instrument, not our enemy. It's the vehicle through which we empower each other and support each other and protect each other. And it is not good enough to simply accept the world the way it exists and try to manage it better. We need a governor who's going to see the way the world should be and take us to that place. Let's aim high. Let's aim high. Let's be us. Let's give working families across the state a better deal, an economy that works for everybody, not just those at the top. How about a living wage, paid family leave, affordable housing, and higher education, and childcare? How about a transportation system that people can actually depend on to get to work on time, right? Yeah. And yes, to South Coast Rail as a part of that. Every region of this state, not just the T, not just the T and greater Boston area, but every single part of the state, we need to invest in infrastructure. Let's aim high when it comes to our dysfunctional healthcare system and implement a single-payer system that's simpler, cheaper, and actually does a better job keeping people healthy. Let's aim high when it comes to other big challenges we face. One that your senator works diligently on is considered a leader on climate change, one of the biggest threats to our planet. Our broken criminal justice system, which is jailing way too many for way too long. And more important than anything I just said, let's aim high when it comes to how we treat people. When it comes to how we treat people, we need a governor who sees the value and potential of every single person, who respects everyone, who doesn't need coaching and pressure and second chances to get it right. And I want you to know that if I'm your governor, it won't matter what color you are, what your sexual orientation is, what you believe, whether you're from Dighton or from Rehoboth. Whether you just came to this country, whether you're a Syrian refugee, whether you're transgender, I see you, I believe in you, and as your governor, I will work for you. We have always done better when we see our differences as strengths, and when we recognize that beneath those differences are many more similarities. When we treat each other with respect and dignity and love. So let's aim high. If we do, I know we can build a better future for everybody. That's the lesson my parents taught me. It's the American story. It's what the people of Massachusetts have proven over and over again, and it's what we should expect from our government and from ourselves. And that's why I'm running for governor. I'm in this because I care about people, and I want to make a difference in people's lives. And if that's the type of candidate you want, if you believe we need to aim high, if you want Massachusetts to be a leader again, then I hope to earn your support, and I hope you will join our grassroots campaign. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. At this time, we're going to open it up to the Q&A session, which everyone's here this evening for. And we've asked the people from Dighton and surrounding communities to write your questions down as you came in, and we've decided on what questions we're going to ask. So if I may, first question this evening is, if the Safe Communities Act is not passed by the beginning of your term, would you sign an executive order prohibiting state and local police from entering 287G agreements with ICE? Mr. Gonzalez, you can answer this question first, please.
Yes, I would. I would do everything I can to implement the provisions of the Safe Community Act. And for those who don't know, the Safe Communities Act basically says that state and local law enforcement should be focused on enforcing state and local laws and not doing the work of federal immigration officials, which is not their job. I believe that is what our state and local law enforcement resources should be doing. It is the very first piece of legislation I supported as a candidate for governor. And I think it's important. We're living in a very unique time right now where we've got a president who's very unpredictable, who's doing things, in my view, with respect to these travel ban orders and immigration generally, which are contrary to American values and what this country has always been about. And the truth is, the federal immigration system is broken. It needs to be fixed. We need a system that works. We need secure borders. We need a process for people coming in that's quick and easy. And we need a way to deal with the 11 million undocumented immigrants who are here and who are part of our community and who are human beings. And if I'm governor, I will make crystal clear, and this is very different from our current governor, that I am the governor of everybody in this state. And I am here for everyone, and everyone is included. And that doesn't mean federal immigration forces shouldn't do their job, but in my view, the state, which is not responsible for immigration, should not be doing the work of federal immigration officials, which is why I supported the Safe Communities Act.
Mr. Mayor, same question, please.
Great, and what was the executive, I'm sorry, I want to make sure.
If the Safe Communities Act is not passed by the beginning of your term, would you sign an executive order prohibiting state and local police from entering 287G agreements with ICE?
So the answer is I would use executive authority to prevent our local police officers from being federalized and our state police officers being federalized. I'd use the office of governor to do that. But I want to sort of add to that proposition. I believe, and this happened in my own city, that there's a lot of work that needs to be done now if I were governor. What do I mean by that? Let me just tell you a quick share by way of background. And I want to bring in something I brought up a little earlier in my remarks, and that is we've got to reach out to people and bring them in if we're going to get things like Safe Communities done. I do believe we've got to reach out to people that politically disagree with us, and one of the things I did shortly after the Trump-Clinton election was bring together a dinner with Clinton supporters and Trump supporters to see if we could find common ground together. How do we work past our differences? I've always said we've got to push back against any policy that comes out of this White House that is un-American, the federalization of police officers, some of the bigotry, sexism, racism. But at the same time, there are people that voted for Donald Trump that didn't vote for him for those reasons. So I brought this dinner together, and you know something? We spent 2 hours together in Dighton, and there was a lot more in common with the people at that table than not. Fast forward a few weeks later, there were some people in my Democratic City Committee and my City Council that came to me and asked me to put in place a Safe Communities ordinance in the city of Newton. So I started working on this ordinance with the councilors and the police chief, people in the community, and one of the people from that dinner, a Trump supporter, a woman named Jenny Gardner, called me. And she said, I want to understand what you're doing before I make a decision about what you're doing. And after talking to her, explaining to her, this would actually make us less safe if we didn't pass this act, if we allowed the president to federalize our police officers, because it would scare undocumented people from reporting crimes they were victims of or witnesses. She jumped on board, and she actually worked with me to get the votes needed on the city council to pass the Safe Communities Ordinance in Newton. When I think about this question, as governor, I would be engaging people all across the state right now. Town managers, police chiefs. I'd be going into cities and towns and convening them around the importance of passing the Safe Communities legislation, which I support. So I do believe we have to be advocates for it, but I also believe we need the type of executive leadership that will get it done and in place at the state level.
Mayor, this question's for you and Mr. Gonzalez also. How do you feel about the prioritization of mental health, which which lowers costs in the short term, but is staffed by people not as qualified as they should be. So again, it is, how do you feel about the privatization of mental health, which lowers costs in the short term, but is staffed by people not as qualified as they should be? Mr. Mayor.
Great question. The first on the mental health issue, and I have grave concerns about, as we all have been reading, about some of the private vendors that are providing mental health services, in particular around substance abuse treatment. Very concerning, obviously, at the state level as well. Here's how I think about this question. Each one of our budgets on Beacon Hill have to be based on outcomes for people. We have a mental health crisis, we have a substance abuse crisis in our state, and in order to get to a point where we're addressing the needs of all of our people and all of our families, we need to look at the outcomes we want, particularly in our healthcare system. We need to destigmatize mental health issues. We need to make sure that we have proper coverage at the state level. This is one of the reasons why I support single-payer health insurance in our state. When I think about the system we have in place right now and the outcomes we want, and I think about the single-payer system that we want, the 4 principles I believe we need to have in place are, number 1, the outcomes for our system need to be based on the health of the individuals. Number 2, it needs to be accessible for all people, no matter where they live. Number 3, it needs to be affordable. And number 4, we need to make sure we have the right kind of coverage. Right now in the state of Massachusetts, one of the great things about our coverage, we have 97%, 98% of folks that have some sort of insurance, but it doesn't mean they have the right coverage. And it doesn't mean that it's affordable. And it doesn't mean it's accessible. We can make sure we're driving those outcomes in mental health if we rearrange our system so we have the right coverage. And it is not as expensive as it should be. One of the other pieces around my concept around single payer and the 4 principles is that I know we can reduce costs through administrative costs and drug costs. But we have to start with those, the health outcomes for people if we're going to get to moving towards a mental health system that is fair and equitable.
Yeah, so this is a huge crisis in our state. Access to mental health treatment and substance abuse, where we've got an opioid epidemic that's raging, which you all in this region know better than anybody. And this is personal for me. My sister-in-law suffers from bipolar disorder, and I saw firsthand not only what she went through, but what my family went through to make sacrifices for her, to support her when a system failed her. As CEO of the health insurance company that covered low-income people in the Medicaid program for the last 4 years, the #1 health condition of our members, these are low-income people in the Medicaid program, was addiction and mental illness. This is real, and it is ruining people's lives and tearing families apart and tearing communities apart. Our communities. We need to do better at this. And privatization may be a part of it. The truth is we need to invest more in making sure that we have the supply of treatment services to meet the demand. And we are not attacking this issue with the level of urgency that it requires. I also believe we need to go to a single payer system. I think that would help. And this needs to be a part of the transition to that system, and obviously one of the things we need to think about, it needs to be treated the exact same way as physical health conditions in terms of making sure people have access and that it's affordable for people, and we are meeting the demand. And right now we are failing at that, and there is a lack of ambition and aggression on a part of the Baker administration, in my view, to deal with these serious problems that we're facing.
Thank you. The next question is, how do you propose building on Mass's progress in getting residents renewable energy? Can we get to 100% as a whole?
Yes, we can and we must. in my remarks, your senator's been a leader on this issue at the state level and even beyond. I know he traveled, I think one of those phone calls that he was referring to, you were in some European country somewhere when you answered the phone, talking about renewable energy. This is one of the biggest threats to our planet. And this is yet another area where our current governor is not providing the leadership we need. I have said I think we need to be, I think we should be the first state in the nation to move toward carbon pricing. Ideally, we do it on a regional basis, but that is an important tool in our toolbox that we need to utilize to help drive toward renewable energy quicker. I think we need to accelerate our transition to renewable energy sources, and I think our governor is not being aggressive enough in that respect. Offshore wind in particular is a huge opportunity for us, and we aren't moving quickly enough in that area. I was very glad to see, as I was driving in, huge solar farms right here in your town and in Berkeley, and it's really great. We need more. We need to accelerate the transition. Another area that I think we need to attack is natural gas pipeline infrastructure expansion. We should shut it down. We need a governor who's going to oppose it, who recognizes that we shouldn't be furthering our dependence on fossil fuels, which just takes us the wrong direction. You know, private industry is moving ahead of us on this. All the car manufacturers are now saying by 2022, 2023, all the cars are going to be electric. Governor Baker has made no real progress or no real initiative to transition our transportation sector to clean energy. And that is the biggest emitter right now of greenhouse gas emissions. We have to be a leader on this. We have to take this on. It is coming. And the thing is, and this is something your senator also talks about, probably the most important part of this is a huge job growth opportunity for us in Massachusetts. We could create thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs right here for the clean energy sector and be the power plug for the world's clean energy economy. Governor Patrick used to say we could make the world our customer when it comes to the clean energy sector. And we can and we should. We have all the assets to do that in terms of the academic institutions and research and the financing of venture capital financing and all the elements we need to grow jobs all around this state. We invested, when I was in the Patrick administration, some people said it was foolish, in the pier at the New Bedford pier, at the New Bedford Harbor, to support, that needed to be extra strong to support the offshore windmills to be transported out to sea. It cost about $100 million to invest in that infrastructure. And as a result, it is, because of that foresight, it is now being used. And it is going to make New Bedford and this region one of the leaders in a core spot and manufacturer and supporter of this industry. So we need to be intentional and conscious about leveraging the opportunity here and growing jobs for people in Massachusetts.
So the answer is yes. Can we get to 100% green energy? That was the question, right? Look, here's how I think about this. We, over the course of the last 8 years in Newton, have cut our carbon footprint in half as a municipality. And at the same time, yes. And at the same time, we also saved taxpayer money and actually addressed economic inequality. We can actually, through environmental sustainability and addressing climate change, address public health, ensure that we're dealing with social justice issues and giving people a foundation of opportunity, and make sure we spread the economic boom outside of the greater Boston area. In Newton, we save money through our solar initiative. We save money through reduction of energy consumption in our buildings. And we're going to save $20 million over the next 20 years in the municipality. Doing solar and all the rest. We also shared solar power off of our municipal property with 900 of our lowest income residents in our city, so that they got a credit off their energy bill One of the things about Newton is we have second highest number of millionaires in the state. 1 in 7 of our residents are at or below the poverty level. We can go beyond being clean and also reducing energy bills. We can also create jobs. I'm a big believer in expanding the solar program here in Massachusetts, offshore wind, and renewable energy technology and growth that's already happening, as well as climate change technology. Massachusetts can be a world leader in this regard. Just like we did in life sciences, we can do the same with clean energy and create jobs. Senator Pacheco, who's getting name-checked a lot tonight because he's been a leader, but you know, and we all know, that if we have a vision and if we understand the capacity of clean and green energy, we can do all three.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to mix these questions up a little bit this evening. It seems that the healthcare question has been the most written question down this evening, but this is an issue that hits close to my heart, and I want to just change things up a little bit. This is the question from the audience. What are your ideas or plans for housing, getting the people who do not have housing living on the street in a facility to live in? So basically it's, how would you help the homeless to get them off the streets in the winter to somewhere where it's warm? Mr. Mayor.
So I believe very strongly that we have a housing crisis here in the state of Massachusetts. We do not have appropriate units, facilities in order to accommodate people, and that's why there's a rise in homelessness, and there will continue to be. This is a central part of the driving economic inequality here in our state. Two things I would point to, and when we think about this, 2 projects in the city of Newton that we started. One is a project in Newton Center where we are building a development for formerly or homeless people, chronically homeless people, including children and families, right near public transit. We're using a great innovative nonprofit called NPATH, formerly known as the Crittenden Women's Union here in our state, to provide services on site. And we also have daycare nearby for children and families that they will have access to, and vouchers. And we have human and health services nearby as well. When I think about this model, which has been successful in other places where you have services on site, proper transportation for people, and access to services all in one place, like we're developing in Newton, this is the kind of growth that we need to invest in all across the state. There's a second site, Golda Meir, Jewish Community Housing for the Elderly, that has a great program. We're adding 80 units for individuals that are homeless in partnership with Golda Meir, with services ensconced within the site. So those are 2 places within our own city. A third model is Soldier On out in Pittsfield. They take in homeless veterans, and they have all the services on the site. And the veterans live there, it's veteran to veteran, they help each other, they work on the site with services. So I would invest, and it's gonna take, from the state, real investment to grow and scale up these types of models across the Commonwealth. And not just in one area. We've got to do it in Greater Boston and places like Newton. We've got to do it in Dighton. We've got to do it in the South Coast, Central Mass, Western Mass, and North Shore. There is no strategy at the state level right now to deal with the homeless problem, and it is a crisis. So I would look at each region. I would build upon what's happening there, what the assets are, and I would make investments that include the types of modeling that I'm talking about. And we got to do it now because it's a crisis.
So it is a problem in this state, and a proven evidence-based solution that I would pursue, very similar to what the mayor's talked about, is what's called supported permanent housing. And this actually will cost the state less if we do this right and get better outcomes for people. It is proven that people who are homeless, most of whom are mentally ill or suffering from addiction, so they're underlying causes of the homelessness, which we need to tackle, if we are able to stabilize their lives by providing a roof, permanent housing, which is actually cheaper for the state than paying for shelter. If we're able to provide them permanent housing and the supportive services they need to address the underlying causes of their homelessness, whether it's addiction treatment or mental illness treatment or whatever it is that they need to stabilize their lives, we end up spending less on the housing, less on healthcare costs in particular, which are the big driver of costs that taxpayers pay for people who are homeless, who end up in the emergency room, and I saw this with members at my health plan, 50, 100 times a year, literally. If we are smart about this, we can actually get better outcomes for people and stabilize their lives and save taxpayers money. And I initiated, when I worked for Governor Patrick, the very first program of any state in the country to do this. Do this in a way where we solicited private investors to provide that upfront funding so that we could put people who we knew who were on the Medicaid program into permanent housing and to provide the supportive services they need to save the state money in terms of both housing costs and healthcare costs. And that program has been successful. So we just need to scale up some of these things that we know work that actually will result in savings for the state, better outcomes, and we can take those savings and address some of the bigger problems of the affordable housing crisis that we face across the state.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. This is the last and final question. It was typed out in print and printed and sent to me, and the question is as follows. How would you help the seniors in regards to rising taxes, including state taxes and local property taxes, rising healthcare costs, including prescription drugs, and rising medical costs and general inflation? How would you address the safety of aging seniors in nursing homes, living alone, or out in public becoming targets? And also, where have you demonstrated an outreach to seniors and quality of their lives? Mr. Gonzalez.
That's a lot. It's a great question, though, and it's important that we are focused on it as a state. The number one thing that I think we need to do for seniors, and this is something that we worked on at my health plan also in terms of a personal example, is everything we can to keep seniors safely in their homes, right, and in their communities. Because as soon as seniors end up in nursing homes, it's very hard to go the other direction. It's a much less of a quality of life. And I think to the extent we can do everything we can, this is another example of a situation where nursing home costs are much more for the state to subsidize than it is to provide the supportive services that seniors might need. Home care services, visiting nurse services, personal care attendants, help with Wheels on Meals and transportation in the community, where seniors can stay in their home comfortably and stay engaged in their community and live independently. It's a better outcome for them and a better outcome for us collectively as taxpayers through government. So we need to be, this is commonly accepted, we don't do it very well, and we don't do it enough. And a lot of these supports that elderly rely on to be able to successfully stay in the community, our current governor has been cutting. They're the easy place to go, and they shouldn't be, and they're not the smart place to go. We need to be ramping up investment in those supportive services so we can maintain a good quality of life for our elderly, and hopefully forestall the time when our seniors end up in nursing homes, which is not good for them and not good for us collectively.
So I saw this personally, as a son of a mom who lived alone down on the Cape for 25 years, whose health was failing, and here's what I saw. Look, I saw my mom struggle with basic transportation. When her car broke down and she couldn't get it fixed on time, she couldn't get the ride, which was available to some, and that got cut back. She couldn't get to the grocery store and back at different times of the year because of lack of transportation services. We had to go down, back and forth. There were basic questions about where she could live when she couldn't live in our single-family home or small home anymore. So, of course, I had to look for where we could afford to have her rent an apartment. Extraordinary housing costs to find her a place to live. We finally found that place. Healthcare costs, basic prescription drugs, co-pays to go to the doctor, all these things combined, and her taking care of herself. And she is fiercely independent to this day. I saw it as a son, I saw it as a mayor. When people were coming to my office every single day, asking about the same questions my mom did in my hometown. We know that the largest population growth in Massachusetts are people of retirement age. And we are not ready in our Commonwealth to ensure that people at retirement age who didn't have the pensions that a lot of people did years ago in the savings, that don't have they're living on fixed income, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Mass Health, and basic prices of housing and transportation and healthcare continue to go up. This is a crisis we are in. So this is how I see it. We have to, at the city level and even at the town level, make sure we accommodate seniors as they age in place. There's a great program called Newton at Home that does, in fact, facilitate making sure people of retirement age can be supported in their homes. It's a nonprofit. We partner with them on basic services. We need to make sure at the city level there's basic transportation for seniors that's real and accessible and affordable. All these cuts to the ride, changes to the ride, are not accommodating people right now. We've got to get our healthcare system fixed. This is why I drive home the fact we need to drive into single payer, reduce costs, not on making it more expensive for seniors or retirement age to live here in the state of Massachusetts like Charlie Baker tried to do, some of our most vulnerable citizens, but actually put in place a healthcare system where reducing costs through administrative costs and reducing prescription drugs. And we need to have a real affordable housing plan for our state. Beyond the homeless, unique homeless facilities, we need to be building affordable units for people so that they can live in dignity in the state and they can afford to. And that's going to take a regional strategy attached with transportation, and it's going to take real investment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That wraps up the Q&A session of this evening's forum. At this time, I'd like to reintroduce to you Mr. Jay Gonzalez for his final remarks of the evening. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for being here again. I failed to acknowledge before Pat, who's here, a Republican working for the Republican committee who's tracking us right now and videotaping us, but I've gotten to hang out with Pat a little bit now and want to welcome him as well. But as I said, it matters to show up, and I really appreciate your taking the time. I know SETI does also for us to be able to tell you about ourselves and to hear these questions from you, which are informative. The only way we can be the best candidates we can be is to be able to actually engage with you, hear what's on your mind, hear what issues matter to you, And that is why I've been going all over the state for the last 9 months, meeting with people in rooms like this, trying to understand what's on your mind and what you care about and what you expect from your government. A couple of things that I'd ask you to consider as you consider which Democratic candidate to support, except for Pat. I think, there are going to be a lot of similarities between what SETI and I and Bob Massey want to do as governor. I think it's fair to say we all believe that we should expect more than we're getting from our current governor, that we need to actually work with a sense of urgency to make progress on issues that are holding people back, and we need to stand up for every single person in this state. And you will get that from every single one of us. And I pledge, if I don't win this nomination, I will be right there with whoever our Democratic nominee is, backing them, because they will be 100% better than our current governor. But we do bring different experiences to bear in terms of what we're offering and the ability to deliver on an ambitious agenda and move us forward. One thing that I'd ask you to consider, I'm the only candidate in this race that has leadership experience in state government, getting big things done. When I was there working for Governor Patrick, I not only was responsible for managing the budget and bond bills and working with the senator on projects here like the Dighton Berkeley Bridge and the Taunton Courthouse and others. But I often was the person who, on behalf of Governor Patrick, who negotiated a lot of the big things we got done with the legislature. Things like the transportation reform law in 2009 that got rid of the Turnpike Authority and more money for the transportation system. Things like the healthcare cost containment law in 2012. Big reforms that I was often trusted with negotiating with the legislature and working with other stakeholders to get done. I think that should matter, because we're going to need to deliver on our ambitious agenda on behalf of Democrats and people across this state to improve the lives of people in this state. And I've got that experience. I know how the system works, and I've done it before. The other thing is, I think while our case needs to be about making progress on issues for people and standing up for everyone, we are going to have to take Governor Baker on the management stuff. It's his whole case for being governor. He said his whole case was, I'm going to go in, I'm going to fix the budget, fix the opioid epidemic, fix the Department of Children and Families, fix the T, all of which are worse. Every single one of them. And we're going to need to be able to expose his failings in all those areas. And I would humbly say that I think I'm well positioned to credibly do that based on my record of experience in the public sector and in the private sector. So I ask you to consider those two things when you're deciding who to support as your candidate. And once again, I appreciate the opportunity. We've got a sign-up sheet out, I think, at the table in front, and some more palm cards with some information. I'd encourage you to go to our website, which is on those palm cards. I also know I don't know everything. So if there's something we didn't talk about today that you think I need to know, email me. That email address is on that card. And if you want to help us out, sign up on the sign-up sheet, and we'd love to have you be a part of our team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Again, it's my pride to introduce to you the Honorable Mayor of Newton, Mr. SETI Walker.
Thank you so much for having us this evening. I'll be brief. This is going to be a tough campaign. It is only going to be won through grassroots politics. Door to door, person to person, neighbor to neighbor. We've got to just do more than say what we're against. We've got to say what we're for. And we've got to make sure we're reaching out to everyone. I've been to over 100 cities and towns over the course of the last few months across the Commonwealth. And I know that if we work hard, we get people turned out, we can win. There's some folks in blue shirts in this room. The team SETI should raise your hands. I want you to sign up, and we got to get started now. Whether or not you decide to support me or support Jay, I would encourage you to sign up for one of us. because this election is important if we're going to address our generational obligation and economic inequality. We've got to be in it together. And whoever wins that nomination, if it's not me, I'm going to be working hard for whoever that nominee is, who we can beat. So I got a great team. John Walsh, many of you know, is working with me, worked with Deval Patrick. Nancy Stoltenberg, part of the Patrick team, also joined me. Got the best team in the state. I'm really proud with some great young people. I asked to earn your support in the next coming months, roll up our sleeves and win. Thank you very much.
Again, let's have a big hand for our two candidates.